Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not to Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Doom Patrol, a great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, there's the whole situation. Let's start off with Cyborg side of things. Obviously, him and Ronnie. Obviously, there's a whole conversation about, because obviously she talks about the fact of the matter is she's in a crap ton of debt because of like all the medical procedures she had to go through because of what she lost and stuff like that, and physical therapy and stuff like that she had to go through, and so she's got like a crap ton of like debt she has. So Cyborg is offering to look in her body. It's like, can I look inside you? She's like, ew. He's like, no, not like that. And it's just like, basically he wants to look at her body to see like what tech was taken out, to see whatever he can do to help on his end. And so she kind of agrees, but he has to kind of open up about the stuff he's not bringing up in group, which he does. It's like, yeah, basically brings up the whole Mr. Nobody situation. Yeah, he plants a thought inside my head and I almost killed my dad. It's like, holy shit. He's like, and that's me skipping over all the other crazy shit that went down last season. And she's being like, right? Like, holy crap. Like, she can't help but laugh at just the absurdity of what went down last season. When you look back in retrospect, you're like, some absurd shit went down last season. But he's looking at her body, but basically because there was something attached to her spine, now it's a situation where it's like poison is basically leaking into her body. That she was like, oh yeah, that's why I said like I die long before I'd have to pay anything off. She's like, it was kind of her defense mechanism is to make a joke out of it. So Cyborg's willing to hack the government to kind of find out whatever he needs to, but she's like, no, don't make me your next project and stuff like that. You want to be good in everything, don't hack the government. He's like, oop, boop, too late, already did it. But looking into the specs, he ends up finding out that Star Labs and, Niles are connected to this. And obviously he brings it up to his dad. It's like, how could you be a part of something like this? And it was interesting because, well, for one, like, I like the whole thing about, he's like, I'm not going further until you explain what this is all about. He's like, it's a girl. He's like, oh, you buried the lead, son. He turned it to a dad, like, oh, you and a lady friend, huh? Like, he's like, oh, I thought that was kind of like an adorable moment right there. Because obviously, despite everything, Vic and his dad still have a bit of a complicated relationship. It seemed like things have gotten better since last season, but even then it still seems weird and awkward. But obviously for Vic, it's like, how can you get mixed up with like a group, like do be a part of what you've done, like. But for Silas, is like, I'm gonna be upfront with you. That money I got from those dealings and stuff like that keeps you running. So basically, it's like all the tech and the money and tech that went into Vic comes from that. It's like that. Making Cyborg ain't cheap, and probably keeping his upkeep super ain't cheap either. So it's like, it's probably that thing of like, it's probably like a lawyer who wants to say, like, for every like 97%, like I do free bono cases, I need to do those 3% where like I have to do something I might not like because I need to keep the lights on type of situation. So it might be like that. It's like, you are my project of like, you and many other things I do are good, but I might have to do some shady shit from time to time to make money to keep you as being the good symbol that you are. So I just thought that was just kind of an interesting thing, So I'm interested to see what kind of goes down that route, what ends up happening. And I brought this up last episode. I'm curious, like, in his attempt to help Ronnie, because Ronnie, like, who she was, like, with that tech and everything, like, whatever she made in the mess ups and stuff like that, part of me's wondering, like, if Vic helps her get back to who she was before as an attempt to save her life, will she end up becoming what she might consider the monster she was before? Brings up a lot of questions that I'm curious about. So there's that. Then we got to go with everything with Rita. She's so happy. She's like, oh yeah, like I know our town and everything. It's like, oh no, it's not our town, it's our town. And she's like, what? Oh, and it's literally the entire play is about their town getting sucked into the hole at the beginning of the season. And it's like, okay. And then like it makes Rita feel super awkward. Well, I should call Gertrude because she's going just by Gertrude. But like, I guess because to be fair, not a lot of people in town saw her face before she like, blobbed out, So it's just like, she's got to sit there and it's just super awkward. And it's like, what part are you playing? And the girl she met is playing her. And it's like, oh, and I was like, oh, this is got to be the worst thing ever. And, And then the real sad thing is that the lady knows her so super well. She like breaks Rita down on a psychological level of like, oh, she just, wears a pretty dress and everything because she wants to be seen. Because she starts off actually small, and then Rita's kind of like, what? And she's like, yeah, it's a byproduct of like her issues with her dad. And Rita corrects her, mom. She's like, right. That totally makes everything fall into place and everything. And it just makes Rita feel terrible about it and stuff like that. And it's like, it's just at the end of the day, it's like if she didn't hold on to like, her hatred for her mom, she could be who she really wants to, who she needs to be, what she's supposed to be. And Rita's like, what is that? What is that? Because she's hoping to get some answers out of this. And it's like, be the blob that basically sucks everything in. And she's like, well, I'll see you tomorrow. And Rita's like, I found my nemesis. I was like, I love this. That's so interesting. You're part of a play. It's like, to be fair, there were other... I mean, granted, you guys had your issues, but you're not the reason why the ground got... Well, I mean, the argument could be you are the reason why things kind of went to shit. I mean, it was more so Mr. Nobody, and he's stuck inside of a painting, but, that still begs the question. Then, no, I'll get to something soon enough about Mr. Nobody that I'm curious about. Probably won't be the case, but we'll... I just thought that was just so interesting. I'm like, okay, so where is that storyline going to go? You're going to say part of this production? Because she tries to like, you should, humanize the blob and stuff like that. But, the blob lady. And it's like, she's like, no, I thought I was doing that already. And it's like, oh, so... It's so interesting, and because I think for Rita, this is going to be her opportunity to kind of grow, because she's going to use this as like a, outside perspective of kind of taking that and kind of applying it to herself. But once again, this is her nemesis, so she wants to kind of show her up, because it's like, I'm going to act circles around you because you think you got me figured out, from the perspective of this being a character you play. But as that person, you don't have me figured out, even though she kind of does have Rita figured out. And I think that's probably what pisses her off even more. That's going to be such an interesting situation. I'm curious to kind of see what that dynamic ends up growing into. So there's that situation. Then there's the space situation, which I think is kind of interesting. Obviously, for one, it's like you got the pioneers coming back because they've been in space for like 60 plus years, because it's another thing that Niles did that is just kind of like, well, he lost contact with them, so he assumed they were dead. But it's just still kind of that thing of like, I don't know, you see what you did with the Doom Patrol, and it's just like... It seems like you make a lot of mistakes. You've done a lot of stuff back in the day, especially when he was connected to the Bureau and everything, that it just seems like a lot of it. I mean, the OG Doom Patrol, we see what kind of happened to them. It just seems like you throw a lot of people to the side is what that seems. I mean, Niles is slowly and, accumulating to the fact is that he's not the good person that everyone thought he was, or that he thinks himself as, So he brings Cliff along, which I love. Cliff is like, yeah, I got the finger. He's like, I thought I told you no violence. He's like, no violence. I was with, Cyber Vic when he was trying to, make things up with his lady, and there was a crime. So he's like, I interfered. He's like, before I even get to that, I was trying to, I was being a hero. I was like, what would a hero do? And that's before, let's, get this out there before we get to the whole door slamming and the finger situation. But it's like he puts the finger in the refrigerator to kind of keep it, it's like, okay, he's like, just you wait. So obviously there's the Jane situation, which we're going to circle back to that. But going into space and everything is because they're going after Dorothy, because Dorothy wouldn't leave because and it was so interesting because like Niles kind of had that parent moment of like, what does she think she's doing? Like she's, she's old enough to need to know that she can't just run, that there are consequences for her actions and stuff like that. He's like, I tried my best. Like, he was getting frustrated, and Cliff's like, wow, no wonder she ran away. But then and I thought it was kind of interesting while she's, walking and talking to Candlemaker, she's like, why are you talking so different now? Like he's talking different, like he used to be like one word at a time, and now he's like talking full sentence. And she's like, why are you talking like that? He's like, my thought before she got to her sentence, my initial thought was like, could it be Mr. Nobody? That's what I was thinking. Like, we know he can get inside of people's heads. That's not, I mean, once again, since we literally brought up Vic's situation this episode, I'm like, he can get inside of people's head. Like, even if in a painting, he could be getting inside of Dorothy's head as kind of a middle finger to Cliff and the others for leaving him in that painting, him and, Beard Hunter in the painting. Could be. But then Candlemaker suggested something like, now that's interesting, that basically because she's growing up, whether she wants to or not, because she's growing up, because I think all these experiences, everything she's learning and going through, she's always tried to stunt herself to be like, no, I'm a kid, I don't want to be a grown-up. But because of that, the more she's learning and the more she's growing, the more he is. So that's why he's talking the way he is. And it's like, she's like, I didn't want to hurt Jane. He's like, yes, you did. I only did because of what you wanted to do, and you're the one that made the wish. And she just wanted to be left alone. But I thought it was interesting because, like, the conversation between Cliff and the Chief. For the Chief, he's like, it's my fault because I pushed this too soon. Like, he's like, especially on Jane, because for him, it's like, he wanted, Dorothy to have a family. He wanted to know that she'd be okay if he was gone. So he was trying to push Dorothy and Jane closer together. And he's like, I kind of created this situation. In particular, when he kind of, tried to push Baby Doll and her closer together, but it was more so a byproduct of like him wanting to have some form of family before she was gone, and that actually ties into Jane's story soon enough. I'll get to that, but I just thought that was all real fascinating, and hearing that Cliff is going out there to talk to her, and obviously it comes down to the situation of like, cause she's realizing, she's like, Dad was right. I am dangerous, and it's once again, this is my fault, and I thought was kind of interesting because, Cliff came at it from the perspective of like, because it's like, oh, the whole thing about Manny, it's like, yeah, that was a gift from my mom. And it's like, it's the only thing I have to remember my mom by, which is obviously, I'm curious, like, once again, what happened? Like, did her mom like lose her immortality or something? Because it seemed like, that was, once again, they're still in between like, him returning to the bureau and finding out about his daughter. There's like a good chunk of time that we don't know like what happened in between there with Dorothy and her mom, how Dorothy really got to where she was when Niles ended up finding her. So there's a lot of unanswered time that we have to probably, hopefully over the course of the season we'll eventually get answers to that missing time frame. But it's a situation of like, that was the last piece of her mom she had to hold on to. And so Cliff talks about the fact is my daughter, she lost her mom too. She was young enough for her not to really know, but it still didn't stop her from growing into and being a good person. Because for Dorothy, she's thinking like, oh, she's a bad person. But Cliff is kind of basically saying like, everyone's trying their best, at this whole thing, life, trying to figure themselves out. So trying to make Dorothy see like, you're not alone in all of this. So he was kind of convincing her to kind of come back. And I thought, despite everything, he's like, your kid is sweet and everything, And he's like, when it was all said and done, he told Niles, it's like, when we get back, whatever happens to you, I'll be there for the kid. Which was like, oh, so sweet, considering the fact this Cliff was all, fuck Dorothy. Who cares about Dorothy? Middle fingers to Dorothy. But it's like, no, he said that. But then Niles is like, yeah, but we're not going back. Cliff's like, what? He ejects Cliff into the ship, which is super effed up, and to kind of send him out into space like that. But I'm sure it's like, oh, we're close enough to Earth that you'll crash down. It's still like, that's kind of effed up. But, in the grand scheme of things, I should also talk about the fact is I love how that spaceship works, because it's like, yeah, he built it in the 50s, but it's also got a little bit of a magic touch, because there's like he's like almost like a magic goat basically being the pilot, and it looks like the fuel is an apple. That was interesting. So got your mix of science and magic in that moment right there. I thought that was kind of interesting. Because even Cliff was like, how did you, so you're really terrible at this because you still couldn't, you basically started space travel, but you still made me look the way I am with the parts you made. He's like, I used what I had on hand, regardless of all of that. The fact is that, I guess for Niles, he just thinks like, Dorothy's too dangerous to be on Earth, so we gotta go. But I think at the same time, it's like, you're also a hindrance to her. I get it, you're trying to protect the world from her, but I think at the same time, he's not really giving her a chance to grow up. Like, I guess because maybe he feels like, you know what, if I die, at least I'll be out here in space with Dorothy. Maybe he's going to go to a different, because that's what the Pioneers was all about, like space travel and stuff like that. So he's like, either this is going to be leading into his immortality thing, because to get that, he would have to go down the Larry route, the negative spirit and everything. But then there's the situation of like, okay, so I guess he just wants to take Dorothy as far away from other people. I mean, granted, it's a DC universe, so we know there's so much more out there, because we know that the damn, whether you get your, apocalypse / dark side situation, you got your damn Green Lanterns out there in space. Potentially the Hulks, depending on the continuity, because some stuff has them as aliens, other stuff has them as reincarnations that are connected to aliens. That's a whole thing. There's the freaking Martians. Let's not forget about John Jones. So it's like, there's other beings out there, so it's not, but I guess it's one thing for humans, or maybe he's still implying like, oh no, we'll go to some isolated part in space. I don't know what his plans is, but it is kind of messed up that obviously it's like she'll finally have a family and you're taking that away from her when Cliff is like, oh, we'll step up and do something. Because it's like, he even told her like, I think Jane will understand because like Jane knows what it's like to have people in your head. So regardless of that, that's going to be interesting to see what ends up happening. Like, I think Niles is in the wrong here, but you get where he's coming from, why he did it, but I still think, like I said, he's still wrong in that matter. So there's that. Then there's a whole Larry situation I thought was fascinating. Like, he's talking to the pioneers and everything, and the one in particular, she's just like him. She has a spirit. I was like, oh shit, Larry found some commonality. He found some common ground with someone else. Like, he's never come across someone else with a spirit. And it turns out she's in perfect unity with her spirit because she talks in we. I'm like, oh, you want some Venom shit, ain't you? Like Venom and Eddie Brock, like we are Venom. I'm like, I like that. And it's so interesting because she's like, yeah, she couldn't control it at first, but she's like, after 5 years, and Larry's like, it took you 5 years to be in control of your spirit. She's like, yeah, how long did it took you? It's like, ooh boy, that's a loaded question because you can make the argument Larry still hasn't fully mastered the whole situation, and even him and the spirit are definitely on better terms. It literally took him, he only got on better terms with the spirit after decades, like a couple months ago, because season 1 took place like, you have to adjust for time and stuff like that, but it's like it was a couple months ago that the events of season 1 happened, at the very least the end results of season 1, so it's like it hasn't been that long, so I wouldn't even consider it mastery. But she tries to come at it from a different perspective because obviously it's like, because for her, she's not have to worry about the radiation situation because they're in unity. She's able to kind of keep the radiation in her skin. I mean, Larry still got the whole, his burnt skin is from the crash, not the radiation and stuff like that. So, but it makes you wonder, would he be able to fix that or something? But whatever the case may be, obviously Larry's still dealing with the fact of the matter is one of your sons died. The fact of the matter is your other son tried to have you captured, and your grandchild got shot in the process. And it's just like, it's a lot for him, and because obviously she's coming in from the perspective of kind of like cutting ties with the past and kind of finding some unity. But obviously for Larry, that can't be the case. But then it's like the two that are with her, like it turns out they actually died years ago. Because even Larry's like, how the hell are you two so young? It's like her situation, it makes sense because her situation's like mine. She has a spirit. Do you two have spirits? But it's like, no, basically there was like some bacteria or whatever in space that got to them, and she came back to Earth because she wanted to bury them. She kind of wanted to, say goodbye, because she was cutting ties with the past. And, Larry kind of became a little more understanding because it's like, oh, you've been through your own situation, you've been through your own hell. And she's like, we don't like to believe that, but she thinks that's why, like, the beauty of Earth. He's like, because it's a spinning thing of tragedy or terrible stuff. And she's like, yeah, because I think that's supposed to be the whole perspective in this, that like basically even the terrible things you go through make you stronger. You grow because of those experiences. So yes, that's what life is. Life is good, life is bad, but those little bad things can be learning moments. They can be something that you can grow from, in some shape or form. It's kind of how I'm looking at it. And so for her, she gets to bury them, and it's like, he's like, do you have any final words? She's like, if there's fruit that grows from here, I wouldn't eat it. And that's just kind of balanced. Well, she said fruit or vegetables that grow here, don't eat it. Just kind of left that. And so for Larry, he's not going to give up. For him, it's like, what's important to him is family is important. I think that's an important message of this episode, is family's important. And so he's going to try and mend fences even if he dies in the process. So he's telling the spirit, like, we're going to live like a human, and I get it, you want to be a being that's able to kind of look at things, go back to space and kind of look at things from a different perspective and everything. But it's like, if we're going to be living as a human, humans don't thrive alone. Humans thrive being connected and having each other, having family, so he wants to kind of try and mend those fences. So we'll see whether things kind of work out for him in that front. And then we get into the really interesting stuff about Jane. And I thought this was so fascinating because it brought up some questions I had. I was like, my question last episode, what the hell happens when a personality dies? And it's like, she was breaking that up. She's like, what, do we know? Because even none of them know. Because she's like, because it's like there's at least two of them dead, like the secretary as well as the fire one. She's dead. So it's like, okay, so Jane's like, well, how do we none of us know how this whole situation worked. This whole thing is a construct. So it's like basically saying, do we know that they're dead? It's like the only one we know for sure is dead is Miranda, because she went down the well, and then Jane was like, no. It's like, yeah, they voted on dumping the bodies in a well. And it's just like, and now she's asking the question of like, she's asking Hammerhead's like, the one that's leading this, have you ever met her before? It's like, no, but she's probably on like the far end of like the mind and everything. But it's like, do you think this is her purpose? Like, I don't know. But like for Jane, it's like, but that's the thing. Like, everyone has their purpose. Like, what about Baby Doll? Like, Baby Doll has served her own purpose. And then this line from her I thought was so fascinating. She was like, Baby Doll's the only one that trusts men. I was like, oh shit. So that it's not just like the child, like she doesn't just represent the part of Kay that's like, oh, like being able to have the child like wonderment, like the childhood that was stolen from her. Baby Doll kind of represents that, obviously. But it's also like, because of that childlike wonderment, you trust the world. You're not as cynical about the world. There might not, and granted, Kay has every right to be cynical about men after what her dad did to her. Like, all of them represent that. So for it to be Baby Doll being the one that literally being the only personality that doesn't have issue with men, I think it's such an interesting aspect. That's another role as to why Baby Doll kind of exists the way she does. I was like, that line though, it was like, I was like, that's so fascinating, her being the only one that trusts men. I was like, holy shit, that's so interesting. I could not get over that line. That line tripped me out. I was like, oh my god. And once again, when you look at Kay's situation, it makes perfect sense like why most of her personality, if not like all of them, with the exception of Baby Doll, would be not trust men, considering, Kay's circumstances. So Jane comes to Kay and is like, what am I supposed to do? And Kay's like, basically, that's your role. You're the one, that's what Jane's supposed to do. Jane's the one that's supposed to figure things out. And obviously she tried to stop them, like, let's not dump them in there. The fact is, we don't know this whole situation. We don't got this whole thing figured out. The fact of the matter is, give them time, then they might fix themselves. But then lo and behold, I was like, oh crap, like Miranda literally comes out of the well. She's like, oh, you talk like you understand the well. She got close to the well. She never went into it. Miranda's the only one that actually went in. So it's a thing of her being like, you have to throw them in there because they'll come out reborn like I was. I was like, holy shit. So, and obviously Jane's kind of reluctant about that. So Miranda's like, all right, so I need you to step aside because I'm the one that knows what Kay wants. And that was the whole thing. They brought that up earlier. Miranda is the only one that's ever known what Kay wants. And I think now she's shifting over. She's going to go back to the role of primary. Now, granted, we don't know what happened to Miranda in all that time, like whether she's 100% right to be back in that role and what that means in the grand scheme of things. When the others talk to her, it's like, oh, I'm not Jane anymore, I'm Miranda. So it's like, does that mean, will we ever see Jane pop up from time to time, or will Miranda always put her in reserve? That's the question. Like, what's that mean for Jane going forward? Because everyone plays a role, but the fact of the matter is Miranda's supposed to be the one who always knows what Kay wants, but it seems like Jane has her special role too, in the sense that she's the one that's supposed to figure everything out. She's the one I think that's like Miranda. I think Miranda, like everyone plays their key role, and I think Jane is getting pushed to the wayside because Jane's kind of lost in everything. She's kind of lost her way. She's never really 100% knew her purpose, and I think she's kind of lost it even more so. The little bit she had been able to grasp onto, but I think that's going to be a big part of this season, her being like, no, I'm going to be the one that figures this whole thing out and pieces everything together to keep this perfect harmony. And I don't think Miranda's going to be the solution that she thinks she is, because I think even she's still coming at this from one perspective, because yeah, she might know what Kay wants, but it might be a thing. It might not be about what Kay wants. It might be about what Kay needs, and that might be the role that Jane plays. Or maybe I'm misconstruing it. Maybe Miranda feels both roles. But I think that's going to be something we see, that, Jane's able to do something for Kay that even Miranda can. And because everyone looks at Miranda like, oh, you're the one that can figure everything out because you know exactly what Kay wants. It's going to be interesting to see kind of how this all plays out. I am very, very, very interested to see where all this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, let the force enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.